we want to give you a bit of an update on what's going on in Mosul. Obviously, a significant number, tens of thousands of troops circling what is currently the largest city by population being held by ISIS in Iraq right now. A senior U.S. official said about 50,000 Iraqi ground troops are taking part in the offensive, which continues to the time that we are filming this video. Iraqi army units are deployed to the south and east, while Kurdish fighters are attacking from the east and the north of the city, where it's estimated 5,000 to 6,000 jihadists are dug in. Of course, that's what they're releasing. They might be saying that number to make it seem eminently more doable, could be larger. Roughly 5,000 U.S. troops are also in Iraq. That's the entirety of the country. More than 100 of them are currently embedded with Iraqi and the Kurdish Peshmerga forces. They are there supposedly in a communications and coordination position. Not even those 100 are on the front lines. And so it is believed that U.S. casualties in the oncoming offensive will be low. But we do know a little bit about what's been going on there. And so in addition to the toxic sulfuric gas that we were talking about, there are networks of tunnels that are allowing for the movement of ISIS fighters inside of and around the city. There are booby traps. There are suicide bombings, both on foot and vehicles that are equipped to deliver explosives in a suicide attack. There are many reports of human shields being taken. And also, as ISIS has moved from the outlying areas of Mosul into the city, they have been bringing not only human shields with them, but leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. And we're receiving reports of literally hundreds of executions and things of that sort in the days leading up to today. There have been hundreds of bodies simply left in rivers to spread terror, entire families being killed, and in some cases, it's direct retaliation for villages being seen to be eagerly greeting the Iraqi forces that are coming towards Mosul.
Jesus Christ.
And so this is before we even get into the actual urban combat in Mosul.
Man, look at this monster we unleashed. Man, they said the Iraq war would be easy. Look at what has come out of it. Jesus Christ. So a lot of times you hear these stories and they're propaganda. Oh, they're taking... they're using civilians as shields. 8 out of 10 times that turns out to be not true, or the opposite. That the people putting out that message are the ones actually doing it. This is not one of those times. So, number one, we have 95 confirmed car bombs that have gone off from suicide bombers. Number two, they said the sulfur plant was bombed by Mosul. Well, earlier in today's show, we showed you a giant cloud of toxic sulfur hanging over Iraq. So that's definitely true. That's NASA scientists' pictures of that area. So ISIS is doing this stuff. It is an unbelievable terror. And you're right, we haven't even gotten into Mosul, a city of 1.5 million people. Silver lining in this literally toxic cloud is I have maybe never seen the world this united. So yes, we've created this unbelievable monster in ISIS, and it's not just we, and of course there's a lot of factors that go into it. We had the original sin when we invaded Iraq, but then of course these terrorists are wholly responsible for their own actions as well. But now we've got American forces kind of there, not on the front lines, but advising and calling in airstrikes, of course.
Yeah, not wearing boots.
Yeah, that's okay.
There are no boots on them.
That's right. They say, no, they're not boots on the ground. What are they, slippers on the ground?
They're Crocs on the ground for communications purposes only.
Maybe boots in the air as they land on top of them. Okay, but in this case, happy to have them land on top of ISIS. So Americans, Iraqis, Kurdish, Peshmerga, as John pointed out, and now the Shia are there from Iran. That's a mixed blessing because the local Sunnis not happy to have Shias who they don't like in that area. And the Iranian-led Shias are like, hey, while you take Mosul, we'll help with Tal Afar. Meanwhile, the Turks are also in Iraq, also not overly welcome there, but kind of fighting ISIS. But meanwhile, warning the Shia, hey, you better not take Tal Afar. There's a lot of Turkmen there who are ethnic brothers, although they're not Turkish, from the Republic of Turkey.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the Turks, the Iranians, the West, and the Sunni Iraqis and the Kurds united against one enemy. That's your silver lining. But that alliance hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
So what happens if the Iranians don't listen to the Turks in Tal Afar, and the Turks have already crossed the border and have an encampment that they should not have inside Iraq? Oh boy.
But with the best of motivations. And I mean, when the fighting in Mosul really picks up, we have no idea what could happen. It's possible that the ISIS forces will break more easily than they're expected to. There could be mass surrenders. They don't seem like the sort to do so. Or this could end up becoming one of the worst instances of urban warfare in the past 60, 70 years. We honestly don't know. They've had multiple years now to rig the city with explosives. I mean, God only knows what could end up happening there. But the stakes are incredibly high because this is the biggest city that ISIS currently holds in Iraq. Taking it would severely impact their organizational capability, and so it is important. Now, understand that at the same time, we're also hearing initial reports that the U.S. is currently planning within the next few weeks to also hit ISIS in Raqqa in Syria, which is, of course, the main city for ISIS in Syria as well. And the reason that they're apparently moving up plans to do that, overlapping operations with the operation in Mosul, is there are apparently credible threats that planning is being done in Raqqa for acts of terrorism outside of the Middle East, perhaps in the U.S., perhaps in Europe as well. That's obviously scary at the same time. Now, the U.S. would have a significantly greater direct involvement in the conflict in Raqqa, so bear that in mind.
Yeah, let me give a little bit more color to a couple of things John mentioned. Mosul is also important because that's where the Grand Mosque was, where Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, declared the caliphate. So that's the one appearance that he's done. That was the one where there was also that funny moment where we caught his Rolex as he was giving this speech. Interesting that he cares about that kind of material goods. I thought he was a pious religious man. Yeah, laugh along with me. Okay, and then in terms of the triple attack on ISIS, again, kind of cool, almost out of the movies, but also could be destabilizing. It could go either way. So the U.S.-backed forces are going to hit in Raqqa, which is in Syria. The Iraqi forces are going to hit in Mosul. It's about 50,000 when you include the Kurdish Peshmerga and other units there. That is the largest forces they've got put together. And then the Iranians might hit ISIS in Tal Afar. So, wow, that's super interesting. I mean, that is a collection of people you don't often see fighting together.
Yeah. But Jake, why are we telling them what we're going to do? You should use the element of surprise.
Okay, and by the way, it might also be misdirection. It might be to get ISIS to panic and to try to go back to Raqqa, thereby taking Mosul easier. Mm-hmm. So all of that might be the case as well. It might be that, they just fold. There's only, if these reports are right, there's only 5,000 to 6,000 of them in Mosul versus 50,000 Iraqi forces. On the other hand, they've won under similar odds before when the originally Iraqi forces fled those cities and abandoned them in the first place.
And I don't know that we should trust these estimates anyway.
Yes, and these estimates could be propaganda. But so it is possible they go, let's get out of here. And so apparently what they're discovering is in the villages, as John alluded to, they're finding a lot of families with just the women and the children. And they're like, where are the men? The men have been taken as civilian shields as ISIS retreats. So if they're retreating from one village to another city, for example, well, easier to bomb. Americans have the air completely controlled. But if they took hostages with them, harder to bomb. So there's nothing that they won't resort to. So it's possible that this turns into horrific urban warfare.
Yeah.
Or maybe they retreat and live to fight another day. They're very unpredictable, and we don't know what they're going to do. But they do have to go to Mosul at some point. I guess today's the point, and let's hope for the best. And you said this might be the worst urban warfare we've seen in 60, 70 years, or the worst one since Aleppo, which is also happening right now.